Hey, it's Joyce again. Third video of the day. So this is part 11 of Human Tuning by Dr. Beaulieu. Today we're moving into the Fibonacci's. We have been working with the solar harmonic spectrum. And now we're moving into the Fibonacci's, which are a different set. And as a reminder, Dr. Beaulieu's company makes the tuning forks for Soma Energetics, which are the forks that I'm using here. That's 99% of the forks I have are from Soma Energetics. So we're working with little things are different. Like Soma Energetics forks all have very long handles. See how this handle is shorter than this handle? Functionally, this handle is a little bit longer. This is from Omnivos, another company. Dr. John's company makes them, but Soma Energetics you can always tell because the handles are functionally longer. Anyway, so yeah. So we're going to read... I don't think there are any demos in here. I'll just read the introduction to the Fibonacci. I don't think there are any demonstrations in this. So we're going to start, as we always do at the beginning of every chapter, with the anechoic reflections, which you may remember. Dr. Beaulieu was a psychiatrist at Bedlam in New York, and his experience with working with tuning forks started when he went into a non-echoing sensory deprivation chamber with the tuning forks and listening to his own nervous system and circulatory system and whatnot, and that's how he really learned about the forks. So we always start every chapter with his anechoic reflections. I lost my sense of normal reality when I sat in the anechoic chamber for long periods of time. The sounds of the tuning forks transported me to alternate realities. At the time, I thought it was like a radio station where the tuning fork sounds were like a carrier wave in which embedded within it multiple realities. When I went inside an interval, I experienced realities within realities. I met many teachers and wise beings who taught me things about myself, sound, and the very nature of reality. Outside the anechoic chamber, my connection to alternate realities continues. It was as though the anechoic chamber was the teaching environment. Once the lessons were learned, it was possible to transition to an alternate reality at any time. I often continued my alternate reality experiences when dreaming, daydreaming, or becoming aware of something in normal reality that suddenly transported me to an alternate reality. It was not uncommon to be aware of several realities simultaneously. This story happened in the summer of 1974 during the height of my anechoic chamber experiments. I was walking down a New York street with two friends. The trucks were idling, and the workers were unloading crates. Something about the sound of the trucks caught my attention. I asked my friends if they would be willing to watch out for my safety while I sat down and listened more closely to the sound of the trucks. I sat in a safe spot and allowed my body and mind to relax. The sound of the trucks formed a distant rhythm, da-da-da-boom, da-da-da-boom. I let myself go with the sound. At first I imagined being a teenager in Indiana and going to the drag races, listening to the engines idle. I remembered how those sounds fascinated me, and I imagined driving a race car. Listening even more closely to the sound, I found myself move inside its pulse. My imagination and memories were still present now, accompanied by a new sensation. A profound quietness or stillness came, and for a moment, I experienced myself just being the sound. Then there was a shift in my awareness, and I found myself with a group of Australian Aboriginal chanters. They were communicating a message about the dream time. I was just as clearly with them as I had been with the truck just a few minutes ago. I allowed myself to absorb their message. An old man singled that they must move on in the desert. I understood. At that moment, my friend tapped me on the shoulder. I came back to reality of that New York City street, and the truck drove away. Okay, so this is an example of the Fibonacci set. It's all in proportions. Here's the forks themselves. The Fibonacci tuning forks are designed to resonate with the pathways of consciousness from the sphenoid pituitary axis to the pineal gland. So, we know where the pineal gland is. You know, it's like right between your eyebrows in the center of your skull. Your sphenoid is if you put your hands on the side of your face where your big jawbones are, and you move above that, there's like a dip. Move back from that dip a little bit so that your hands are kind of like on your brow, but also right above your ears. That's pretty much where your sphenoid is. And your sphenoid is really important because it's the bone that connects the bowl part of your skull that protects your brain from your face and your jaw. That's the bone that connects those two. Very important. That's the bone that lines up with your hips. That's the bone that affects more than anything else the amount of pressure that is placed on your skull. And it is the most important bone in the work that I do, which is craniosacral and lymphatic drainage. So I'll read that again. The Fibonacci tuning forks are designed to resonate with the pathway of consciousness from the sphenoid pituitary axis to the pineal gland. Their main purpose is to open gateways into alternate realities and to explore higher states of consciousness in order to empower a creative healing response. For this reason, they are excellent sound healing instruments, especially when they are used for working with creativity, vision quests, addictions, and healing traumas. Intuitively, the Fibonacci series are precisely tuned seashells. They are based on the spirals found in seashells. When we put a seashell to our ears and listen to the sound, we are like Dorothy rolling the vortex of the cyclone to the alternate reality of Oz. Inside the seashell, we discover realities within realities. We can spend hours walking the beach collecting shells and listening to their sounds. The seashell spiral can be translated into a number sequence called the Fibonacci series, which can also be translated into a set of tuning forks. The Fibonacci series starts with 0 and 1 and grows by adding to itself. The last two terms in the sequence are added together to produce the next term. Here's how it works. 0 plus 1 equals 1. 0 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 1 equals 3, and so on. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144. They go from 1, 1 through the sequence up to 34, 21. The numbers of the Fibonacci series can be translated into tuning fork sounds by their interval relationships. A Fibonacci interval is any Fibonacci number divided by the one adjacent to it in the sequence. For example, 2/3 is a Fibonacci ratio, as is 3/5, 5/8, 8/13, and so on. The intervals begin with large pulsations rising from above, then under the center line. They get closer and closer to the center line as the interval pulsations get finer. The interval pulsation will never merge with the center line because the center line is beyond the interval and pulse. It's the center of the spiral. The following chart shows the intervals and their number equivalents. So I am not a number person at all. I kind of have like dyslexia for numbers. So I'm just going to let you look at this because I can't explain this in number form. I understand it in a different way. I understand it like the pattern of the shell opening, or the way that the waves change on the beach. I can't explain the numbers to you because numbers don't make any sense to me. And a numerical understanding is not how I understand this. But for some people that makes sense. I'm not one of them. The further along we go in the sequence, the more the numbers come into alignment with the mathematical spiritual proportion known as the golden mean. Mathematics define the golden mean with numbers. However, it's more an intuitive sense of the right proportion, yes, or harmony. The number value given to the golden mean is 0.61803398887. The dots in the number n mean the golden mean. Numbers go on forever without any logical sequence. Mathematics call this an irrational number. We perceive those numbers as a spiral. And for those who look at numbers and understand what they mean, there's that number I just spoke. There's also this graph here. Graphs don't make any sense to me either. That might make sense to you. It makes no sense to me at all. The golden mean has been called by many names, including the golden ratio, the golden section, the perfect division, the divine proportion, and simply the Greek letter pi. We intuitively enter the spiral of the golden mean through the harmony of the perfect fifth. We visually experience it in the spirals of seashells, the patterns of flowers, or the spiring of galactic systems. The center of the golden spiral created by the golden mean is the still point. A still point is a place of no thingness, energy without form. Today, scientists might refer to still point as 0 point. The golden mean spiral can be seen throughout the human body. The embryo, the heart, the ear are of particular interest. The embryo grows along spiral lines of force as it laterally spins into life. The heart, when properly dissected, unfolds into a spiral. The outer ear and the inner ear, called the cochlea, create a spiral within a spiral. The outer ear resembles an embryo, and it is used by ear acupuncturists as a map for the whole body. A body within a body is the same as a spiral within a spiral, going on forever. Body therapists call the art of working with the whole body through a part of the body reflexology. In many instances, working with the colon points of the ears to heal a colon spasm may be quite effective, much more so than working directly at the colon. And that's what we do. We work on the ears, we work on the feet, you can work on the hands. Sometimes you've got an injury, maybe you're chronically constipated from surgery or some kind of illness, and you really can't put your hands on that digestive area, but you can work their feet, you can work their ears and whatnot. And in a real basic sense, the human body is mirrored on the ear like an embryo upside down. And you can work those with ear seeds or microcurrent devices. Certainly acupuncturists use them, but you can just use your hands too. The same spiral principle is true for alternative realities. Each alternate reality is a location within a spiral revolving around a central vortex of stillness which connects with the universal energy field. In many instances, it may be more effective to work in an alternate reality to effect healing than in a normal reality. This is not any different than a reflexology touching points on the feet to effect healing within the whole body. Everything is connected and spiraling within the universal energy field. Therefore, working in an alternate reality will reflex to all realities. The therapeutic use of alternate realities is often indicated in cases of trauma, abuse, and addiction. Like I said, sometimes you can't work on the spot because there might be a cast there, an injury there. It might be so acute and swollen that you can't touch it. someone who's been beaten or raped, you can't work in that abdominal area, but you can work on their feet or their hands or their ears in the related areas. In these cases, normal reality is just so painful that a person uses trauma, abuse, and addictions as vehicles to transform into an alternate reality to protect themselves. The alternate reality ones arrive in are often places where it's possible to communicate with wise teachers, light beings, power animals, and experience magical worlds. These realities are often the source of great music, paintings, poetry, and scientific discoveries. Beethoven was beaten repeatedly by his alcoholic father, and afterwards he would walk through the forests in a dreamlike state and hear beautiful music. During the 1960s, the experience of alternate realities was associated with psychedelics such as LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, as well as marijuana and opiates. These substances were taken as a rebellion against the normal culture of the time. The transition between normal reality and alternate realities after a psychedelic was ingested was called getting high and trippin'. The transition back into normal reality was also called crashing. In other words, the transition between realities was not smooth, and the mind and body paid a price. This is because the use of psychedelics, marijuana, or opiates to transition into alternate realities without proper knowledge and preparation is naive at best and tragic in many cases. Taking a psychedelic to transition between realities is like hitting someone with a club to get them to see something different. Sometimes it may work, but at what price? I know something of the price, having worked in psychiatric hospitals from 1969 to 1977, where I observed the physical and mental effects of hundreds of bad trips. I learned that when alternate realities are associated with psychedelics, marijuana, or opiates, the mind becomes limited in its ability to transition, which is a form of dependency. The teachings of Don Juan by Carlos Castaneda illustrates this point very well. Carlos Castaneda, an anthropologist studying indigenous plant healing, apprenticed with a Yucca shaman named Don Juan. In the beginning of his apprenticeship, Don Juan used psychedelic plants to initiate Carlos Castaneda into the sorcerer's world. Later in his apprenticeship, Don Juan told Carlos that it was not necessary to ingest the plants to obtain altered states. He chose the plant route because Carlos was dense and needed to have his world shaken up. From that point on, Carlos Castaneda never ingested another psychedelic, yet his amazing altered states continued. This is how everything's supposed to work. Dr. Beaulieu goes on about this over and over and over and over again. Learn these things, use these things as tools to teach you how to access those parts of yourself, and then take off the training wheels. Learn crystal resonances and crystal healing by having the crystals and learning to feel them and your intuition to work with them. But then get rid of the crystals and just use the power that you have tapped into in yourself. Same with anything. Same with tarot cards, tuning forks, everything. That's the key. To not need them. It's okay to have them, but it's really your intuition that's doing the work anyway. You just happen to have a tool in your hand. You can have a hammer, but if you don't know how to build a house, you're not going to be able to build a house with your hammer. And you can go out and buy a set of Fibonacci tuning forks, but if you haven't read and studied, and actually don't start with a set of Fibonacci tuning forks. Don't start there. That's going to be depressing as hell for you. That's going to be way too much. But what I'm saying is you can go out and buy these tools, but unless you already understand it in yourself and your intuition is already a finely oiled tool, these won't work for you. Taking that further means you are a master at this or anything when you don't need the tool anymore. It's important when working with people who have learned about alternate realities by taking drugs or having experienced abuse, addictions, and trauma to honor their alternate reality experiences, and then teach them other methods of transitioning, such as tuning forks. In other words, the problem is not the alternate reality, but with the method of transition. Too often, the alternate reality is dismissed as not real and seen as a contributor to the addiction and escape from abuse and trauma. The focus is on stopping the method of transition rather than finding a better method to get there. Yes. When a method of transition is stopped without a better method to replace it, the person just seeks out another method which may or may not be a better choice. The 12-step program has been used effectively for over 50 years to treat addictions. The first step says we admit that we are powerless over addiction, alcohol, gambling, drugs, and so on, and that our lives have become unmanageable. This step tells us that the method of transmission, i.e. drugs, no longer working in resonance with our whole lives. The second step says we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity. This step tells us that the reality is far greater than our current view of reality, and that we can have access to a larger reality by letting go of our current method of transition. The only way to let go is to trust. Trust is difficult because it appears as though the alternate reality that has been a sanctuary for us will be lost. The third step says we make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. This step surrenders the creation of a new method of transition to the university energy field. When the field becomes available, transition from one reality to another is as easy as driving from one location to another. With the power of the field, it's just a matter of having the right thought and energy will follow. The Tai Chi classics say that thought leads energy. The Fibonacci tuning forks are sonic thoughts. They are in precise alignment with the university energy field. From a 12-step perspective, the sounds of the tuning forks awaken new neural pathways that can lead one to higher power. Each interval of the Fibonacci tuning forks is a turn of the spiral that creates new realities that resonate with their frequency. Once the person realizes that alternate realities are available through sound, it's easier to let go of the cycle of trauma, abuse, and drugs. It's not uncommon to hear alcoholic patients say after a Fibonacci sound treatment that it was better than drinking, or hear drug addicts say, "Wow, that was some high." I once worked with a heroin addict using tuning forks combined with ear acupuncture. He came once a day for treatments. One day he'd come up off the table shaking. I asked him what happened. He said that he realized he hadn't taken heroin for 2 weeks and it scared him. I thought it was amazing that he had just stopped without any interval because the realities he was experiencing via the sound and acupuncture treatments were meeting his needs better than heroin. I'm going to stop there. There's a lot to explain in the Fibonacci. So let's stop there for today. And then tomorrow we'll start actually getting into protocols and things. But let me do this. I can't put them all in one hand, and I can't put them in 2 hands and strike them accordingly. But this is not all. Well, you know what? I think I can probably do this. I would never do a treatment like this. This is crazy. But let's just give you an opportunity to hear the Fibonacci, and that's where we'll stop today. There's crystal. That's the frequency of quartz. thank you guys. And again, if you're interested in getting this book or getting some tuning forks yourself, there's a link below. I have an affiliate account with Soma Energetics. I would greatly appreciate it if and when you decide to buy tuning forks that you help me out by using that affiliate link. I make 10% off your sale. Also, if you have any questions about tuning forks, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to help you with that. Or if you would like to try a remote session of this kind of work, I offer to my subscribers the offer for basically a 30-minute remote session, and you just pay whatever you want. Buy me a coffee, you know. This is Joyce at Medusa Readings, and I'll see you tomorrow.